when they took her out of the house.
I have reached out to CenterPoint more times than I can really tell you.
I think they ought to cover some of the expense of their mistake. They're kind of too big and didn't handle the disaster properly.
We have a lot of people on oxygen. We have a lot of people on CPAP machines. I don't understand why there's no one here.
It's such a large city. Like, it's going to take a long time, a lot of investment to get ready for another storm. I don't see that happening. It's just a lot of talk.
Nobody could give me a response. Nobody could give me a time frame, nothing.
If you could speak with anyone at CenterPoint today, what would you say or ask them?
Why couldn't you have done better? Why did my sister have to die because of what happened?
For the storytellers at KPRC-2, over 4.5 months of hearing the frustrations, confusion, and heartbreak suffered across the Houston area after power outages from the Derecho and Hurricane Beryl.
But tonight, an exclusive interview with CenterPoint CEO Jason P. Wells. Hurricane Beryl left more than 2 million CenterPoint Energy customers in the dark, many of whom were without power for over 10 days. The storm was blamed for at least 36 deaths, including people who died in their homes, left without air conditioning and facing Houston's brutal heat alone.
As we hear from CenterPoint CEO, we want to know what you think. We have gathered electric customers who shared their concerns to watch this exclusive interview live in Studio B. Investigative reporter Amy Davis is with them, as well as Texas Senator Carol Alvarado. We'll get their reaction on the backside of this interview.
In the meantime, we do want to hear from you as KPRC2's Gage Goulding seeks answers from the head of CenterPoint Energy.
So let's start out with, I think, the biggest thing that we've heard from our viewers in the Houston community, these allegations from the city of Houston and 40 other communities that CenterPoint Energy has been overcharging customers to the tune of about $100 million a year. Is that happening? What's your response?
You know, we want to work with all of our stakeholders on what is a fair rate for our service. I don't think that we're overcharging our customers $100 million. I know there's been some frustration with our withdrawal of our rate case, and I think it's helpful to put a little context behind that. You know, our rates are set in a very public process with our regulator. We often seek recovery throughout the year for our capital investments. The rate case that we filed, we have to file once every 4 years, and that really sets the profit on those capital investments. During this process, this past year, every single intervener that participated in that rate case actually supported a higher level of profit on the investments we're making in our system. And given the community's frustration around our response to Hurricane Beryl, now was not the time to talk about higher profits. So we withdrew the rate case so we could focus on making these critical investments to improve our service.
And this was something that I was even confused about, being on the inner workings of it. There was the rate hike and then the withdrawal, and then there was an increase in September. So can you help us understand what exactly that means? Why was that increase implemented in September?
Yeah, you know, there's a number of things that impact our rates. Some of those things are outside of our control. The way that the transmission lines, the large lines that move power across the state of Texas, those lines are often shared. It's a shared cost across Texas. And so as some of our peer utilities modify their rates, those impact our transmission charges. Other times of the year we put, as I said, our capital investment, the investments we make to improve our system, we put those into rates. You know, in the foreseeable future here, this year, we're going to see a rate reduction from some charges rolling off the bill. So there's a lot of rate activity that occurs, but all of that occurs with our regulator governing what we can charge our customers.
Hurricane Beryl and the Derecho are really a 1-2 sucker punch for the Houston metro area. Both of those power outages, those events led to power outages with more than 1 million people, not customers, but people, were without power, the Beryl obviously being a lot more. Do you feel that CenterPoint failed customers during that time?
I know I personally let our customers down with both of those events, and for that I'm deeply apologetic. We will be better. I'm determined to be better, that we will be better. All of the team here at CenterPoint is determined to re-earn our customers' trust. You know, that really began with extensive listening sessions that we initiated right at the conclusion of our restoration activities with Hurricane Beryl, and have continued throughout this fall, hearing directly from our customer the frustrations they have with our service. We're incorporating that feedback into the plans that we've rolled out to develop the most resilient coastal grid in the country. We are committed to re-earning our customers' trust.
I say be better. That's what a lot of people were asking for, and I hear that a lot from CenterPoint. And there's a lot of ways that, have been outlined, and we're going to get to those in a little bit. But one of the ways is hearing what the customers have to say, and there's an opportunity for folks to talk to the PUC this Saturday. So I want to know, will CenterPoint reps be there to hear directly from customers this Saturday?
Yes, we will. I'll personally be there. Our team will be there. We look forward to every opportunity to gather feedback from our customers.
With any hurricane or any natural disaster, any loss is a tragic loss. From our research and data that we've been able to collect here at KPRC-2, we know that at least 10 deaths were attributed to hyperthermia or dying of overheating. Do you think CenterPoint has to share the blame for that?
All loss of life is terribly tragic. My heart goes out to those families who have lost their loved ones. There's not a day that passes that we don't personally think about the loss our community experienced, and that is the drive behind our determination to create this most resilient coastal grid in the country.
And before we get to that, I want to show a quick clip. You brought it up. This is where I want to show it. This is an interview that my colleague Rowan Belogan did with a woman who lost a loved one. And I want to show this to you and genuinely get your raw and honest thoughts.
The Public Utilities Commission, who oversees CenterPoint, is talking about Hurricane Beryl and what went wrong. What would you like that board to do?
They need to get to work. They need to examine the people at CenterPoint and what they're doing.
If you could speak with anyone at CenterPoint today, what would you say or ask them?
Why couldn't you have done better? Why did my sister have to die because of what happened?
In an election year, the stakes are higher than ever. So we all need to take extra care with the information we believe and share online. It feels good to have our views echoed back to us, but it's important to challenge our biases and break out of our bubbles. Be sure you're getting some hard news in your media diet, and double-check what you see on social media with a variety of credible news sources. Be informed, not misled.
At Affordable Dentures and Implants, we want you to go ahead and smile. Right now, new denture wearers get a free upgrade to our premium denture for the price of an economy. Call today. Offer ends October 7th.
Go ahead and smile.
Colin Allred knows what it takes to keep Texans safe. I'm on the border every day. Take it from me. These attacks against Colin are dead wrong.
He's standing up to extremists in both parties.
We trust Colin.
I'm Colin Allred, and I approve this message because we don't need talk on the border. We need action.
Create your perfect room for entertaining, relaxing, and more with patio enclosures. Right now, get 25% off your sunroom. Plus, enjoy exceptional financing. Call today.
With Chevy trucks, be ready for adventure. With power you can count on. Capability that doesn't compromise. A hard-working EV with more range than any competitor and the potential to take you anywhere. It's Chevy truck season. Get 0% financing plus make no monthly payments for 90 days on all 2024 Silverado 1500 pickups. Chevy drives Texas. Together, let's drive.
Imagine being in the hospital and no one will save your life. After 3 failed pregnancies, I finally gave birth to my daughter. But I was hemorrhaging, and the hospital couldn't find the instruments to stop the bleeding. The state of Texas had banned abortion, and those instruments were sometimes used in abortions, so they'd been locked away. As I was rushed down the hallway away from my husband, I remember him standing there holding our baby. I've never felt so alone. When help finally arrived, I'd lost half of my blood. I ended up in intensive care. When states ban abortion, women can die who aren't even getting an abortion. You know who ended Roe v. Wade. When you vote, please think about every woman who could die because of a politician. Please think about me, because that politician, he couldn't care less.
Now at Affordable Dentures and Implants, new denture wearers get a free upgrade to our premium denture. That's an average savings of $700. Call 1-800-DENTURE today. Offer ends October 7th.
Go ahead and smile.
I want to show a quick clip. You brought it up. This is where I want to show it. This is an interview that my colleague Rowan Belogan did with a woman who lost a loved one. And I want to show this to you and genuinely get your raw and honest thoughts.
The Public Utilities Commission, who oversees CenterPoint, is talking about Hurricane Beryl and what went wrong. What would you like that board to do?
They need to get to work. They need to examine the people at CenterPoint and what they're doing.
If you could speak with anyone at CenterPoint today, what would you say or ask them?
Why couldn't you have done better? Why did my sister have to die because of what happened?
I think that hits on the we need to do better there.
Absolutely.
Hearing that is a Houstonian that lost a loved one.
Yeah.
What's your reaction?
I'm so deeply sorry. Any loss of life is incredibly tragic. Obviously, emotionally, that hits me in the stomach, and that is why we are so determined to build a grid that our customers expect and deserve.
And I've had the pleasure of covering several stories and tagging along with CenterPoint crews as they've gone through the first step and now into the second step of this resiliency plan. In your words, in a short version, in the one sentence, if you could, what is the resiliency plan for the future of CenterPoint Energy in the Houston area?
It's creating a grid that can take a punch and get back up as quickly as possible.
How are we doing that? How have we done it, and how are we going to do it?
You know, in terms of how we've done it, we've made significant investments in our transmission system and our substation. That's really the backbone of this electric grid. That moves the most amount of power across our communities. And the investments we made to harden that system stood up both in the Derecho and in Beryl. We had very little structural damage. The next frontier is really building the distribution grid of the future. And that activity is replacing some of the older utility poles with composite poles, stronger wood poles to withstand extreme winds. Some of that is burying our equipment underground. A lot of it is trimming trees back and making sure that they are not a risk to our electric service. And then the thing that I'm most excited about that we've just announced this week is the rollout of equipment that's going to create a self-healing grid. Many of the outages our customers experience don't result in damage. Our crews need to go out, though, close the fuses, and restore power. There's equipment that we are going to blitz our system with before June 1st next year that will automatically restore power without having to send a crew. And in the cases where there's actually damage, this equipment can reroute power to isolate that damage to the fewest possible customers, and again, re-energize for the rest of the customers who aren't impacted by that damage. And so I think that is going to be the game changer for our customers going forward.
I was going to say, we see work behind us now, replacing poles behind where we're at right now, which is right across the street from one of your offices. So there's no, where this work needs done has no limits, right? It's really anywhere.
That's right.
When it comes to that next storm, it's not if, it's when, and whether it be a derecho or a hurricane or maybe even a winter storm. Do you truly think that CenterPoint's ready to handle that, and is the infrastructure ready to take another punch?
Yeah. We've heard the call to action, and the incredible amount of work our crews did during the month of August, really a Herculean level of work, has really positioned our system to take that punch better. And I'm confident as we blitz our system with this technology that will create this self-healing grid, that we'll even be better prepared as we start next hurricane season.
And I want to quote you from a news release that we received. You said, "We have heard the calls for change and we are taking action now." And we've seen that action. We saw that first phase of the resiliency plan be completed. We saw a second phase be rolled out. And we just recently talked about how AI is being used to identify vegetation. So there are a lot of things happening right now, but will things continue to happen in the future?
That's right. You know, we rolled out an action plan because what we had heard immediately after Beryl is our customers were afraid. They had anxiety for the remainder of this year's hurricane season. That's what that work was targeted to address in August. We knew we weren't done. The second phase is getting us ready for next hurricane season. And then the third phase that we will roll out at the end of January of 25 will be that longer term plan that really will deliver that most resilient coastal grid that we have promised.
Call now for up to 50% off your South Shore Harbor opening night reception. South Shore Harbor Resort and Conference Center.
I'm Colin Allred, and I approve this message.
She would have been our third baby.
My second.
Our first. Our second and third baby. Our baby would never survive.
And now my life was on the line.
And the care we needed was denied.
Because of Ted Cruz and the extremist abortion ban. A ban with no exception for rape, incest, or our health.
If you're experiencing pregnancy complications in Texas, you're in danger. It's that simple. And it's Ted Cruz and the anti-abortion extremists' fault.
When your child has moderate to severe eczema, it's okay for them to show off. Show off their clearer skin and noticeably less itch with Dupixent. Because children 6 months and older with eczema have plenty of reasons to show off their skin. With Dupixent, the #1 prescribed biologic by dermatologists and allergists, they can stay ahead of their eczema. It helps block a key source of inflammation inside the body that can cause eczema to help heal your child's skin from within. Serious allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Tell your doctor about new or worsening eye problems, such as eye pain or vision changes, including blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma medicines without talking to your doctor. Show off to the world. Ask your child's eczema specialist about Dupixent.
Embrace the journey, where each moment turns into a cherished memory. Ensuring life's journey and experiences along the way. AAA, we're always with you.
Out on the road, my boys are always on my mind. Every Texan I meet, every story I hear is a reminder of what's at stake. Our politics are broken, and we need someone who cares, who fights for all of us. Because costs are up, freedoms are under attack. The road ahead is not always clear, but working together, protecting our communities, and giving kids a shot to get ahead, that's crystal clear. I'm Colin Allred, and I approve this message.
My pledge is to keep you safe.
I'm your new lieutenant.
I've not given up. I'm just getting started.
Law and Order Thursday, new tonight on NBC and Peacock.
Oh, Gabby Moser, you're safe now.
We find missing people like my sister.
I will take your life if you hurt her.
You don't get to meet the threats.
I'm coming for you.
Found, new tonight on NBC and Peacock.
Something personal now, going through both of these. I know you just assumed the role of CEO in January and you kind of were lunged into this position here.
Yeah.
How have you taken having a double punch as the top dog at our largest utility here? How have you been handling it?
That's my job. You know, I have the privilege to work with an amazing team. The men and women that do this work every day are committed to the neighbors they have the privilege to serve. It's my job to take this feedback, ensure they have the resources to make sure for the next storm we're better prepared and that we respond faster. So I'm happy to take that pressure so the men and women at CenterPoint can do the work that our community expects and deserves.
we touched on it earlier, there's a lot of distrust right now between the Houston area and CenterPoint. How do you plan on restoring that trust?
Yeah, I believe strongly in a D-state ratio of 1. And I think that's what you saw when we first rolled out the first phase of our Greater Houston Resiliency Initiative. We outlined a series of work, and we reported against it every day to make sure that we held ourselves accountable to our promises. You'll see that in the second phase of work in the Greater Houston Resiliency Initiative, and you'll see it as we roll out that third and final phase. I believe that making sure that we execute on the actions we commit to is that first step of beginning to rebuild trust. Along the way, we want to hear from our communities. You know, we've conducted over 19 sessions, listening tours, if you will, with our customers in their communities. We're not done. We're going to continue that work throughout the year, building a level of familiarity, relationships, understanding what our communities need. And I think it's the combination of those things that will, over time, re-earn our customers' trust.
Like I said, you just assumed this role in January, and I could only imagine it must be one of the weirdest questions to be asked, but a lot of people, including state leaders, were asking, why don't you resign? And I like this quote that you said to the Senate committee. I think if I resign today, we lose momentum on the things that are going to have the best possible impact for the greater Houston region.
Yeah.
Do you still believe that to be true? And give me the backstory on your thoughts on that, because that's a strong statement.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it stronger today than even when I said it then. I've had the privilege of being in this industry for 25 years. I've seen how this industry runs to the challenge. The men and women that came from across the country to help us restore our service. I can't do that work, but that spirit of running towards the challenge has rubbed off on me. And I know that we can re-earn our community's trust here. We've kind of talked about it. It's not just the investment, it's not just the listening tour, it's bringing technology that will help us move faster and deploy these hardening investments on a more targeted basis. It's a combination of those activities that I'm confident will build the system that our customers expect of us.
No two storms are alike, but Hurricane Beryl and Hurricane Helene had a very different proactiveness versus reactiveness. We saw a lot of state, federal, mutual aid resources for Hurricane Helene being staged beforehand, where with Beryl, quite frankly, it danced up the coast, and we were the unlucky ones that got hit by it. I want your honest thoughts. Do you think that had an impact on the reactiveness to get the power restored? If those resources would have been staged beforehand, if there would have been help beforehand, would that have made the response a little bit better?
You know, in retrospect, we could always bring more resources to bear. We had pre-staged a significant number of resources. We were tracking Beryl for 9 days before it made landfall. And, you know, as you mentioned, for 7 of those 9 days, it looked like it was going to hit south of us. We were really, you know, monitoring that for a response to the gas systems we have the privilege to operate down near the Corpus area. But we were tracking it for its impact on Houston. As soon as we started to see that it was shifting north, we pre-staged a number of resources. We wouldn't have been able to restore 1 million customers in 48 hours had we not pre-staged those crews. Again, more resources would have helped. I think that the real action that's going to drive change for our customers is, again, delivering that self-healing grid to reduce the number of outages so that the crews that are coming to restore have a concentrated area to focus on and can get the service restored faster.
Your men and women are working right now to continuously make a more resilient grid, but at the same time, you have crews helping out those that are impacted by Hurricane Helene.
That's it.
Talk to the note of how it's just really, you scratch my back, I scratch yours.
It's a hallmark of our industry. We're in this together. We take a great amount of pride to running towards that challenge, as I mentioned. We've got about 1/3 of our internal workforce, native contractors, our employees that are in the Southeast helping with the restoration efforts. We're returning that favor because the industry ran to Houston to help us in our time of need with Beryl. We're in this together as an industry, and I think it is, you know, one of the distinguishing aspects of the electric industry.
Those crews have a monumental task ahead of them, really a kind of demolition and a reconstruction of their electrical infrastructure up there. Is CenterPoint watching to see if there's anything that we can do here and learn from what they're going through?
Absolutely. You know, one of my areas of focus is instilling a learning culture. You know, Florida, as an example, was impacted by a series of hurricanes in 2004, 2005, and it was really their call to action. After our experience with Hurricane Beryl this summer, we brought a number of their retired executives who were part of the strategy of hardening their grid, asking for their best practices, trying to learn from that. We're using the example with Helene to learn as well. You know, there's work that is being done around the country to accelerate the use of AI. We're learning from those peers. We're announcing partnerships like the one you highlighted yesterday. It's learning from all of these different experiences that's going to deliver the grid that our customers expect.
And my final question, and maybe my most important, isn't an answer I want you to give me, but to Houston. Right here, right now, what is your promise to Houstonians far and wide for how CenterPoint will handle them and take care of them in their time of need?
We will absolutely be better. We'll be the utility, the company that our customers expect of us. We'll be there understanding their needs in the community before a storm hits. We will have less outages, we will restore faster, and we will be empathetic to the experiences that they have. We will be a good neighbor, if you will, for our community that we have the great privilege to serve.
Is there anything that I didn't ask that you wanted to mention? I know we touched on a lot of topics in a short time, but is there anything that you directly wanted to bring up?
I continue to want to recognize the incredible work of the men and women that work on our system each and every day. They work through incredibly tough conditions, and in some cases during Hurricane Beryl, face the threats of violence. And, you know, that's counterproductive to the restoration efforts. You know, it disrupts the workflow, slows down. There's really no place for that violence, right? These men and women are committed to restoring power, serving the community that they call their neighbors and friends. And so I think we should really celebrate them as opposed to expressing any frustration towards, you know, the number of outages that we've experienced. That is something that I need to address, and I am happy to stand accountable for outages, improvement, and delivering the grid that our customers expect of us.
Mr. Wells, thank you. I
Really
appreciate your time. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Starting at $3.99, you can get one, make it a double, or go for 3 delicious patties. Go as big as you want with my Bonus Jack combo starting at $3.99. Now you can say you're loving it and actually mean it. At Jack, every bite's a big deal. Welcome to Jack in the Box.
I'm Ted Cruz, and I approve this message.
Boys and girls, they're different. And somehow it's become controversial to say boys and girls are different. But they are. Colin Allred supports boys playing in girls' sports. He voted against the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, and he voted to allow boys in girls' bathrooms, boys in girls' locker rooms, boys in girls' sports. That's not right. Colin Allred should know the difference between boys and girls.
Dear Texas, we know how much you love brisket. We got you. We took mouth-watering brisket, slowly pit-smoked for 12 hours, and combined it with your favorite queso and pico. And so, H-E-B Brisket Queso was born. Because that's how we express our love. Looks like you got the message. Brisket Queso, to Texas with love, from H-E-B.
Spouse or parent worked at an industrial worksite before 1982, you may be owed money for secondhand exposure to asbestos. Many workers carried asbestos home on their work clothes, exposing everyone in the household. Fortunately, there are still $30 billion in asbestos trusts to pay for the damage. Spouses and children can qualify for a share of the $30 billion. For over a decade, AsbestosClaims.law has helped workers and their families file claims and receive compensation checks for their asbestos exposure. Contact us at 833-4-ASBESTOS.
Here, matching bedazzled shirts are worn proudly, and phones are forgotten. Young ones are granted new power, and dad jokes are actually funny. Fireworks paint the sky every night, and hand-holding makes a comeback every day. Here, anything is possible if you can imagine it, and that's what makes Orlando unbelievably real.
Keep your eye on the ball. Ready? Okay, that's okay. Concentrate.
Texas girls are tough.
You got this. Let's do it again.
But they're facing a new opponent they can't beat by digging deeper. Colin Allred could have stopped men from competing in women's sports, but instead, he voted against our daughters. What kind of man does that?
Truth and Courage PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
For the same old breakfast sandwich. For $2.99, you can have my buttery sourdough loaded with crispy bacon, eggs, and melty cheese. Come on, we fought the Revolutionary War so we don't have to eat stale English muffins. We won, by the way. At Jack, every bite's a big deal.
Welcome to Jack in the Box.
Welcome back to Powerless, our special coverage of our interview with CenterPoint's CEO. I have with me here today a panel of people. We've got State Senator Carol Alvarado and the rest of you electric customers who at some point have written us here at KPRC to share your experiences or your frustrations with CenterPoint. So we've invited this group here today to watch this interview with Jason Wells, the CEO of CenterPoint, and just wanted to get your feedback. Senator Alvarado, I know that you had the opportunity to hear directly from him in some hearings in July, shortly after the storm. What are your thoughts of what he had to say here and today?
I think they're making progress. I wish they had done some of these things beforehand, proactively, but I'm glad to see that they're getting out into the community, a lot of the open house meetings that they're having, and the PUC coming to my district on Saturday. We want the public to show up and express their concerns, what they went through during Beryl or the Derecho or both of them. And it seems like they're taking some accountability, which is good. Pleased to see that vegetation is a major thing on their forefront, which, as you know, we pointed out during the hearing, they had been doing less vegetation, even though the budget may have increased, the amount of territory that they were covering was less.
Going down all those easements and trimming the trees off of the lines.
Right. So, you know, at the hearing, we weren't happy to hear about that, but to see that they have increased that, that's an improvement. And then one of the other issues that I had concern with at the hearing was the number of linemen in-house that had decreased over the years. Out of 9,000 employees, only 1,000 were in-house linemen, and they made the commitment there at the hearing that they were going to increase that. So I hope to hear more about that, but it seems like things are moving in the right direction. I think people probably still have a lot of questions, and rightfully so.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on to the rest of you, one of the things that you asked, and I remember hearing that question in the hearing, you asked CenterPoint, Jason Wells, before in the state capitol, do you plan moving forward to ask for, to recoup the costs that it cost CenterPoint for Hurricane Beryl and the Derecho? Like, now that you're here testifying because everyone was so upset at your response, do you plan to recoup that cost? His answer was yes. You didn't like that?
No, I didn't, because there was no hesitation, no pause. It was just, yes, we plan to do so. I'd hoped they would have said either flat out, no, not at this time, we can't even address that, or we're looking at all options, but it was a very fast yes. And I would think there's bipartisan support throughout the Capitol, both sides of the rotunda, for them not to seek that increase or that reimbursement.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk to you, Scott, because a lot of the problems that people were complaining about were not necessarily just that the power went out. Hey, there were strong winds, the power went out. Yes, it took a while to get back on, but were communication issues.
Right.
And when you emailed me recently, yours was a communication issue, not even during the storm, but Tuesday.
This past Tuesday. Power blinked at 4 o'clock. At 4:10, it went off. Chamber of Commerce weather day. Finally got into CenterPoint, and the recording said it would be back on by 9:15 p.m., so like 5 hours. The power wound up being restored in about 40 minutes through social media and other avenues. Come to find out, the power, I'm down at West Columbia. I'm literally 200 yards from the end of CenterPoint service area. So I'm right at the tail end of CenterPoint. The power outage affected as far north as Sugar Land, with Rosenberg, Richmond, Pleak, Needville, Guy, Damon, and all the way to Texas, New Mexico power. So when I did call in, they said it was going to be a 5-hour outage, and in 40 minutes it was back on. So,
and you say all this because you think that it must have been planned if it was that widespread.
I'm assuming it was a planned outage for tie-ins or something. So why weren't we notified? We could turn off our ACs. I've replaced 3 televisions probably in the last 8 years from power surges. Now, I can't prove that, but the TVs start acting up as soon as we have a blip or something. So, you know, that's what goes through my mind.
And we have heard that from a whole lot of people. We want to draw people's attention, too, as we're talking to all of you. We've been sort of doing this poll along the bottom of our screen throughout the interview with the CEO, and we're keeping that up there on basically your general feeling watching his interview. We have about a quarter of the people who said that they liked it, but the majority of people watching it said it made them feel angry. You know, more than 50% felt angry. What about you, Karen? How did you feel?
Frustrated. Because it feels like now they're trying to take action after something happened. And it feels like every year it's the same situation. When we get through a storm, then things happen, and then now they're going to try to replace, now they're going to try to trim trees, now they're going to try to do all of these things that should have been done in preparation, because every year we're going to get at least a storm. I mean, this is going to continue. It's not going to get any better, actually. So, you know, he says that he's going to get things better, but not exactly how long that's going to take.
Yeah.
At what cost is that going to happen? And what exactly is he going to do? I mean, he's talking about some nice things, but I don't feel secure. I mean, I was 10 days without power. And calling CenterPoint 3 times a day, the story was totally different. Yeah, you're going to get it. We have a crew assigned to you, and then you call 3 hours later. Oh, you're not even on the map. You haven't even been looked at. Or then you call the next day. Oh, no, it's going to happen today. So 10 days pass, and I believe it was all about numbers. We were left with the 60-something thousand people out of the almost, I don't know, 2 million?
2.2.
So 25 houses, don't bring that number down.
Right.
You really got to target, right, 5,000 houses. Yeah, and then you see those numbers coming down.
Yeah.
In my case, I knew we were going to be at the end of it because of that little number of houses.
Right, yeah.
So very frustrated.
I could hear that. Your overall feeling, Nick?
Well, it's nice to hear that they're going to plan to do some stuff, but you know, they haven't done it in the past. And as I mentioned to you earlier, that you know, we have a pretty diverse community from expats around the world, and they indicate that this is the least reliable electric grid they've ever lived on. Depending whether they've been in Asia or the African continent or wherever, working in the energy business. So that's a pretty sorry state for the United States to have a 4th largest city have an unreliable grid, and everybody in the neighborhood is considering, you know, putting in a generator. Really, we need to put in our own generators just to have reliable electricity.
Right.
You know, that flies in the face of everything that we stand for as America, in my mind.
And not that everyone can afford a generator.
Correct.
Or a whole house generator.
Exactly.
And we're paying more for power now than we ever have.
Right. And I brought that up in the hearing. We're getting into this situation of the haves and the have-nots. When if you can just do what the basic things that you should be doing, addressing vegetation and such, and hardening your infrastructure, then that remedies most of that.
Right. And we're going to circle back and talk to everybody, but Alex, you might be a familiar face because we came to you when the majority of people still had no power, and you had no power, although most of your neighbors did, and it was this vegetation issue.
I had no power when all of my neighbors had power. So, you know, what frustrated me was at the very beginning of all this, before the storm, I called CenterPoint and I told them that I had a tree that was consuming my service drop. I asked them to come out and assess that and help me trim the tree, and they said they would. When the guys came out, it was toward the end of the day, they probably wanted to go home. They essentially told me that the service drop was not their responsibility, it was my responsibility.
Yeah.
And I said, no. I said, like water, you know, gas, power, anything on that side of the meter in the weatherhead is your responsibility. Anything on this side is mine.
Yeah.
I said, I called one of my contractor buddies, his electrician. They said they're not even allowed to touch a service drop, that the connection has to be made by CenterPoint. Well, make matters worse, the service drop was hanging so low that I could reach up and touch it.
And that is not allowed.
And I asked them to raise it because I felt it was dangerous, and they said, no, I had to do it on my own.
Yeah. So your overall feeling, we're going to take a quick break, but out of those choices that you have there, Alex?
Oh, I don't know. I think you got to put another face up there for me, because all I heard were goals, objectives, and mission statements. I didn't hear any game plan. You know, he's in such hot water that he got up there and he was just, you know, telling, oh, we have a goal to do this, our objective is to do better, our mission statement is to serve the people. Well, how are you going to do that? You know, you admitted that you failed and that you are improving, but you never actually said what you failed on and what your improvements are going to be about.
Yeah.
You know?
We want to talk a little bit more about that when we come back. And that self-healing grid, this is pretty new, so we'll touch a little bit of the information that we know about it. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Before every game at Baylor, I wrote myself a message. Teamwork, accountable, sacrifice. Words that guide me in public service, too. I worked with Republicans and law enforcement on a tough border bill. That's teamwork. And we'll hold Ted Cruz accountable because he's been in Washington forever. He's done nothing to secure the border. Sacrifice, because when your neighbors need you during the freeze, you don't fly to Cancun. I'm calling all red. I approve these values and this message.
Did Hurricane Beryl hit you hard? Now your insurance company's left you thirsty? Hi, I'm Eric Tick, and my clients always come first. Call me right now at 832-LAWYERS. Better get Dick.
Call 832-LAWYERS right now.
When you need inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger. For thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And low prices that add up to big savings, like over $600 in digital coupons each week, and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Happy I just put this dress on that I haven't worn in over 10 years. I just this morning made a new hole in my belt, so that was super exciting.
Why are women everywhere choosing Sono Bello, the advanced solution for permanent fat removal?
I saw the results immediately. It's the best I have felt since I was in my 20s. My waist is tiny. I'm very, very happy.
I'm nearly 50, y'all, and my abs haven't been this flat since before I've had kids.
For a limited time, take advantage of Sono Bello's best offer of the year. Sono Bello's board-certified surgeons use micro-laser technology to safely target and remove your diet-resistant fat cells for good on your stomach, hips and thighs, back, and so much more.
Check it out, snatch waist. Loving, loving, loving the results. It will change your life. It did for me.
Call 1-800-918-0203 now or go to sonobello.com to claim special pricing.
I'm calling all red, and I approve this message.
She would have been our third baby.
My second.
Our first. Our second and third baby. Our baby would never survive.
And now my life was on the line.
And the care we needed was denied.
Because of Ted Cruz and the extremist abortion ban. A ban with no exception for rape, incest, or our health.
If you're experiencing pregnancy complications in Texas, you're in danger. It's that simple. And it's Ted Cruz and the anti-abortion extremists' fault.
Welcome back to Powerless. I'm Amy Davis. This is our special coverage of CenterPoint Energy and its CEO's one-on-one interview with our Gage Goulding. I'm joined today with several electric customers and Texas Senator Carol Alvarado. Thank you all so much for coming in. The last segment we ended, I was asking you all how you felt about what you heard. One of the things that we talked about is you said, you heard a lot of promises, mission statements. You didn't hear like hard, concrete things that they're doing. One thing that we did hear is he talked about this self-healing grid. And he said these are a system and poles that they plan to blitz the community with and have it all installed by June 1st of next year. They're saying that, have you heard anything about that before today?
No, very recently from them. So looking forward to hearing more about it and making sure that it's tested and tested again before we get into, way before we get into hurricane season.
Yeah, so think, not that I'm an expert on these systems, but think sort of smart electric grid systems. And so they say that if there is an outage, Karen, on your street, instead of having to send a truck, they can look at the system and think, oh, can we just flip a switch and fix it if there was no damage? And if there was damage, can we reroute, on another line so that you're not sitting there in the dark? I know that some other electric companies and utilities have been using that as far back as like 3 years ago. And so we asked CenterPoint earlier today, isn't this the same thing that we talked about putting in back in 2022? And she was like, I don't know that. I can't get that answer. And I said, and how much will this cost?
Right. Well, I would hope that they could do this within their own budget and not go to the taxpayers, because I think people are still having just disappointment with the latest rate increases, and now, according to Mr. Wells, going back to the PUC and asking for another increase and putting that on the backs of taxpayers. So, you know, I think we'll be addressing that during the session. That's something that the PUC has to be very vigilant on, and that's why it's important for the public to attend that meeting this Saturday.
Yeah, and we're going to make sure we give all that information, but our coverage is sort of leading up to that to let everybody know we want to know your thoughts. But the Public Utility Commission is saying, come to this meeting. The 5 commissioners that always meet in Austin are coming to Houston so that they can hear from the public on their thoughts. And I know some of you are going to attend that meeting. What do you want to say to the Public Utility Commission about your experience with CenterPoint? Nick, you want to go?
Yeah, just, you know, the same thing, that we have, you know, intermittent but fairly frequent outages. Storms obviously cause it to have issues that can last days. The self-healing grid sounds like a great idea. Again, one would hope that that on the backside there's savings, right? You're not sending a truck, you know, where you can do more with less, and that there won't be a big upfront hit to us to pay for all this, that they're going to get that back on the return side of the ledger, right? So so that we're, you know, they're not you know, raising rates dramatically, that they're getting that back later within their business course.
Yeah. What do you plan to say, Scott?
You know, the smart meters they've got seem to be working for communication-wise, so it sounds like a good idea. Of course, nobody wants to pay higher rates, and like stated before, we're paying more for power these days than we ever have. And then it seems like every time you turn around, 60 million here and 60 million there, we're just throwing money around. But I mean, it sounds great, you know, do it, but do it at your cost, not at mine.
I mean, we heard a lot of complaints from people when all this was going on that, like, okay, I don't understand the system. I mean, it's not a government entity. It's a private utility company that has the privilege of having this sort of guaranteed profit from customers. So then why are we paying for every capital improvement? Why are we paying? I mean, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think that's exactly the point, that why we feel like we should be there right now. Right, so the improvements sound like something reasonable, something nice to have, but we should have been there already. So now we're going to try to get that step ahead at what cost, right? And then there's other things that are basic that still need to get done, that are not, I mean, slowly are getting done, but again, we could get a storm in a week or two, and what's going to happen? And again, 10 days, 14 days, 15 days out of power, you know, I don't feel like they're moving fast enough. I think they need to be more proactive in terms of making sure that everybody is ready, and not, you know, if you get 45-mile winds, then you're out of power.
Right. Alex, 20 seconds left in this segment, but when you look around, when you see the state of, you know, our power and our power outages right now, is there anything that concerns you more, or state of
Well, I think they have a lot of catching up to do. I'd like to know where all that money went all these years that got us to where we are right now. And when we do have an incident, they really need to improve on their customer service. I mean, it was a nightmare for me just trying to get someone to answer the phone. At least you got someone to pick up the phone. I could never get anyone to pick up the phone. And then the information exchange was so contradictory. When finally people did come out to the house versus the people on the phone, it was just, they were just talking nonsense.
In different directions.
Right.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. We want to remind people at home that you could scan the QR code that was on the bottom of your screen there to weigh in on how you feel after watching the CEO of CenterPoint and his most recent comments after the storm on what CenterPoint is doing to strengthen, to harden their infrastructure, and all of these issues that we know are important to you as electric customers. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Pin whatever you see, wherever you are, at Click 2 Pins.
Hi, I'm JR with SellToJR.com, and I buy houses as is in any condition. If I buy your house, selltojr.com can help you find your next home or retirement community. If you want, I can handle the whole move, even the items you don't want to take with you. If you're considering selling your house but think there are way too many roadblocks, call me or go to selltojr.com for your free, no obligation cash offer.
Out on the road, my boys are always on my mind. Every Texan I meet, every story I hear is a reminder of what's at stake. Our politics are broken, and we need someone who cares, who fights for all of us. Because costs are up, freedoms are under attack. The road ahead, it's not always clear, but working together, protecting our communities, and giving kids a shot to get ahead, that's crystal clear. I'm Colin Allred, and I approve this message.
If your spouse or parent worked at an industrial worksite before 1982, you may be owed money for secondhand exposure to asbestos. Many workers carried asbestos home on their work clothes, exposing everyone in the household. Fortunately, there are still $30 billion in asbestos trusts to pay for the damage. Spouses and children can qualify for a share of the $30 billion. For over a decade, AsbestosClaims.law has helped workers and their families file claims and receive compensation checks for their asbestos exposure. Contact us at 833-4-ASBESTOS.
For 70 years, Standard Insurance has helped Texans save on their car and home insurance. We want to help you save too. Call, click, or come by. Call Standard. Call Standard today.
Don't delay, call Standard today.
Goodwill Houston's placement service has definitely helped me to find a job. Now I work for one of the top tech companies in the world. I'm enjoying the work I'm doing, honestly. Goodwill gave me that chance. It gave me that foot in the door to actually show people what I could do.
Stay ahead of your moderate to severe eczema and show off clearer skin and less itch with Dupixent, the #1 prescribed biologic by dermatologists and allergists that helps heal your skin from within. Serious allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Tell your doctor about new or worsening eye problems such as eye pain or vision changes, including blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma medicines without talking to your doctor. Ask your eczema specialist about Dupixent.
We've got answers. The Click to Houston Help Desk. It's the latest feature from KPRC-2, connecting you, our viewers, with answers and services you need. Just click on Contact Us in the Click to Houston app or go to help.clicktohouston.com.
Welcome back to Powerless, our special coverage of CenterPoint Energy and our exclusive interview with the CEO today. Our group here joining us for reaction to that interview has a lot to say, as we know that you do at home as well. This coverage preceding what is expected to be a very important meeting, the Public Utility Commission coming to Houston. The board always meets in Austin, but they're coming because they want to hear from Houstonians. You don't have to register to attend this meeting that's Saturday at 9 o'clock. You plan on being there, Senator Alvarado?
Yes, I plan to be there and to address the PUC. CenterPoint has some work to do, but so does the PUC. They need to be mindful and looking at all of these entities and their budgets because they regulate these providers and they need to look at what entities are spending on vegetation, how many linemen, how many crews do they have in-house versus how many are they relying on to bring in once there's a storm. So they have some accountability too. This is the first time that in, I think, 20 years that the PUC is not meeting in Austin. So I'm glad to see that they're going out into the public, but we need the public to show up.
Right. We know everybody's very busy, but basically they've never made it easier because few people will drive to Austin to speak to them. There's also a form where you can go online and fill out if you can't make it or you're working or you can't make it that day. I guess just overall thoughts. I mean, Alex, on, you know, what you hope to accomplish. Do you plan on speaking?
Yeah, I do. You know, I just want to, again, reiterate a little bit about their customer service, what our expectations should be, not in global terms, but specifically, what are you going to do to make things better and to correct things? Again, the customer service, and then the whole thing about upcharges and raising rates and all that. You know, I have a pretty strong opinion about that based on the fact that no one seems to really understand that when we all lost power, whether you worked from home or not, a lot of us lost business. No one came to us and said, hey, hey, can we help you out?
Very good point.
Right?
Yeah, very good point. And I think those are the things that everybody can come forward and speak about. So the public meeting, PUC workshop, is at 6300 Irvington this Saturday, 9 a.m. You don't have to register in advance, and you can sign up to speak once you get there if you're still on the fence about doing that. We appreciate you all coming in to join us for our conversation, and thank you for tuning in. Everyone have a great day.
The feet have